My people, what's up? It's Kenneth here, 100 Years of Wealth. You know the company, streamhomeloan.com. Thanks for checking in and tapping in again. I want you to go ahead, like, subscribe, and press the bell so that you get notified every time I drop some of these hot videos. But anyways, so I wanted to make a quick video. The whole goal here is really to add value and give you information that may support you along your way, and not always to say, okay, this is the way to do any particular thing, except for probably like mortgage and real estate stuff that I'm super well versed in. But other things are going to be opinion based on experience and just really trying to be helpful. So the big topic roaming through the internet and, basically through our lives. Before the internet, it was self-help books and videos and things like that. But it's always about like how to build wealth, how to attain wealth. And I think it's not really because everyone wants to be flashy and have diamonds and things like that. They want to find themselves in a position that's just more comfortable, whether that means financially free, of course. That's one aspect of it, where you're not stressed related to money, but then also time, ability to spend more of that time with family and do things that are more valuable to you as opposed to just chasing bread. So that's the reason why I think that throughout history, the attainment of wealth, resources is always going to be top of mind for humans until you're there. So this video, what did our parents not tell us? What should have our parents told us about building wealth at an earlier stage, an earlier age, right? So of course, shout out to our parents. Some did better jobs than others regarding those topics about like sharing information about wealth, but obviously whatever they did, they put us in the position to where we are right now. So it's all about, great appreciation to my mom. Anything that I am now is a product of what she did. So I'm just talking about specifically what parents should have probably told us. Some did, but what they should have probably told us about building wealth, so that you have an easier time building it, and maybe attaining certain aspects of wealth quicker, and what we should be telling our kids and what we should be applying to our lives, so that we are able to take advantage of tools and mechanisms that have been used for a long time to create security, stability, gain resources, and overall just be more happy, healthy, and successful. So what should our damn parents should have told us? I think it's pretty simple. It's like if your parent has a specified knowledge in something, like for instance, my dad has a restaurant. For him, it's easy to say, okay, hey, you can pass on the information about how you cook, or how you built a restaurant, or how you built your business to your children. But not every parent has like a specified talent, skill set that they're going to pass down. Sometimes they're working just in a normal job or something that's not really passion driven. It's just like a company that they started working for, they grew within it, they're making money, supporting their families with that. So it's not always something they're looking to pass down to their kids. But even if you don't have that, or your parent doesn't have that, the things that they should be sharing with us are common sense things, right? The reality of it is that one thing that you're going to consistently need in your life from the time that you are born to the time that you leave this beautiful planet is shelter, right? Like, so besides like food and other things like that, you're going to need shelter. And at a certain point in your life, you're going to start paying for shelter, right? So at age 18 years old, 19, 20, whatever time you move out of your parents' home, you're going to start paying for shelter, renting a property or renting an apartment, renting a house, renting a room, whatever it is. So the advice that they should have told us is that the sooner you get in a position where you are owning your shelter, the sooner you start creating wealth. Because if you look back from that moment, unless you live with your parents, up into like, your late 20s, 30s, or whatever the case is, which is fine too in certain scenarios, whatever works for you. But most of us started paying some sort of rent around 19, 20 years old, maybe even 18, right? And if you're paying rent, that probably means that you're working some sort of a job to cover that rent expense. If you're working some sort of a job, if you have 2 years experience in that job, you probably can purchase a home. a lot of people don't think that at that age, or it's not even like on the surface of your mind. It's not even a thought that's actually happening. For me, it definitely wasn't. Even when I got into the industry at age 22 or 23 years old, I still wasn't even thinking for myself to buy a home. Not until a few years later did I start to even have that thought. But my mom wasn't even pressing me on that issue. She was, working. She was still working. She was handling things on her end. Just focused on, her kids that were still in the house, but not really thinking that she needs to be stressing to me that I need to try to get into a position of ownership. And maybe it's because real estate was not looked at so much as like a direct ability to create wealth. It was like, okay, you buy your house so that you don't pay rent. But maybe for a lot of people, it wasn't something where it's like, no, you're definitely going to build wealth by buying a property and holding that for an extended period of time. So I think that was, I graduated high school late 90s, 1999. And I feel like the real estate market started to take off shortly after that, where you started to see a lot of people, cashing in on their equity, seeing big jumps in property values, things like that. So it's not to say, okay, your parents should have known this or whatever the case is, because most likely if they have some valuable information, they're going to definitely be stressing it to you as a kid. But if they're not even there yet where they're seeing how real estate is a true investment for them and not just the ability to not have to pay rent to someone, more so, hey, look, we're paying this balance down, property values are going up, we're actually building a significant equity position on this property. Hey, maybe we should go ahead and rent this out and go do it again somewhere else, So I think that that's the main thing with our parents, besides saving money, besides, like taking care of your credit, all the things that I'm sure our parents instilled in us. When it comes to wealth building, the one thing that they really should have pushed on us in hindsight is probably try to buy a property as soon as you can. Of course, buy it when you're in the right position to support it, to afford it comfortably. That's obviously the thing that goes hand in hand, because when you're young, maybe you're not working a full-time job that's going to be able to support that. Maybe you're just getting into the workforce, right? But there are scenarios where youngsters have been working since they were 18, 19 years old, and fast forward 21, 22 years old, you should be looking to, instead of paying rent somewhere, try to put yourself in a position to buy. And that's how you arrive a few years later when you're 26, 27 years old and you have a property, and most likely you'll probably move around. You might move in with a spouse eventually. You might decide to move to a different location. But what's going to have happened is that most likely, unless we're in like a complete downturn of a market, most likely you're going to see that you built some sort of equity in that. So when you're fast forward 26, 27 years old, and you decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to either rent this property out, covering my mortgage payment and probably making a little cash flow, which is always going to be a smart thing because that cash flow should grow as the years go, because you should be able to increase your rent while your mortgage balance is going down, and hopefully you can refinance and get into a lower payment. So it'll create that additional cash flow. Or you can say, at that time where you're like, hey, you know what? I built $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 cash in equity, maybe more depending on your area, maybe less depending on the area. But you can decide, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and sell this property and cash in on that equity and just put an extra chunk in my pocket to either invest in the next property, or to possibly invest in some sort of other business. But this is how people start to put themselves in a position where they have a good chunk of funds to reinvest, or obviously like you can use some of it for quality of life purposes at that time, but the main idea is to take that money and reinvest. Take some of it, use it for your life expenses, take another portion of it and reinvest. And this is money that if you did not purchase this home and you just were paying rent that whole time, you likely would have had an equal expense or somewhat of a comparable expense, depending on the scenario, of course, but you have a comparable expense as far as outgoing for rent compared to outgoing for a mortgage. But there's no comparison, because on rent, you build no equity. You get nothing out of it, truly. So like and subscribe. Parents should have told us to buy as soon as possible. You know, and I'm sure my mom's probably like, I told you to do that. I don't remember, goddamn. You got to beat us over the head with that information to get it to fall in and stick. But no, much love to all of our parents, of course. But you know, that's what I'm trying to instill in my daughter right now. As she graduated college, she's going into grad school. I think she's going to take 1 year and then go into grad school. And I'm like, hey, look, you really need to think about your income, where you want to live, trying to buy a property instead of rent sooner rather than later, so that you have the ability to build equity and start to build your wealth at an earlier stage in life, because it just gives you more options, as you go forward, as opposed to being 35, 40 years old and you're trying to figure out how to buy a house and how that's going to work out. You've done that at a very young age. You understand how that works, and you've probably built some equity to where going forward, you have that chunk to, put down on a property that you really want to be in long term. Or, it just, the options are endless once you create that. So I would say that's always going to be a smart, wise move to do, a smart, wise move to advise to your children. And a lot of people don't think of it. This is one last thing. Like, if you're a kid, you could buy a property with a roommate, with another adult. You guys have the job history, you guys have the credit history. You can go in on the transaction together. You don't have to be married. You know what I mean? So if there's options out there to make it work, and it's usually going to be a wise decision, so keep that in mind. Like and subscribe. Hope everything is well with you. 100 years of wealth. Have a great day.